Welcome back to another Supercoach video, one of the last for the preseason. I cannot wait for the real thing to get underway. Today we are finally doing a team reveal. Rather than putting out 3 or 4 and kind of showing how my team's evolved over the preseason, I've kind of kept it under wraps, and we're just going to go straight into one and hopefully the only team reveal I need to do. Hopefully this won't change too much, but we do know rookies can get things a little bit twisted. So let's just jump straight into it with the back line. So look, Jake Lloyd, he's been the number one defender for a reason for a number of years. He's durable. The knee issue that he's had in the preseason, a little bit concerning, but by all reports, he's going to get up for round one, and I'd back him in to be the number one defender again. After that, Rory Laird, someone that we're very keen on at the start of the preseason, and he hasn't really done anything to deter us. It looks like he's going to be the leader, more or less, of the Crows midfield, which sounds weird to say, given that there's also Matt Crouch and Sloan in there as well. But he was really the glue that held together and just add something different to the midfield. So looks, in a year where it seems that we want our halfbacks to be true halfbacks, Rory Laird is one that sticks out as a great option as one of those midfielder defenders. Next up is Jordan Ridley, which, I don't know, might be a little bit controversial. I think he's less picked than some of the other, popular defenders that have scored well, and I get that. His best year's been in a COVID year. One of the things that I try not to do is pick players the year after they break out. They generally regress, but everything we've seen from Ridley kind of in the preseason so far suggests that he actually could take his game to another level. The intercept marking combined with just elite kicking, only person taking Essendon kickouts, with Sard and McKenna. I mean, McKenna was already gone for most of last year, but with Sard now gone as well, and a completely new look back six for Essendon. Ridley's basically the most experienced defender that Essendon has down there. He's going to be the general. They're going to put everything through him. So I really like him as an option this year. But I can also understand hesitance in picking someone that's just broken out, young, isn't playing the halfback, is that intercept defender instead. So yeah, totally get that. Next up is Tom Stewart. So Stewart is one, this spot, I guess I've been tossing up between Caleb Daniel and Tom Stewart, and I think I just prefer Tom Stewart. I mean, Daniel, with the exception of last year, has missed 5 games, 2 games, 2 games, 2 games in his last 4 years before that, so he's a little bit inconsistent with his scoring. Obviously he's an elite kick of the ball and someone the Dogs look to get it to all the time. I think the thing I worry about with Daniel, and I've worried about this for a while and it hasn't played out, so maybe I'm just wrong, is that I feel like there's going to be a point in time where his height gets exposed when it comes to one-on-one defending. And I think this could be the year, right? Someone gets sucked up onto a wing, like a taller or medium-sized defender, following their forward up onto the wing. Forward marks it. Normally that defender would be released from the mark from a forward from their team pushing up, taking the mark. The defender gets to roll back, and then they cover someone like Caleb Daniel. But instead, they're going to be forced to stand the mark, and I think you're going to create more situations where Daniel ends up, being forced into one-on-one defensive positions, and that kind of being exposed to that. If he's getting a goal or 2 kicked on him a game, you could see his role changed in a way that doesn't allow it to be happen. I think it's a really small chance that it does, because I thought this for a while, and I'm kind of hoping that the rule changes will allow it to happen more this year, and it just hasn't happened. But yeah, I'm kind of avoiding Daniel for those 2 reasons. And then finally, he did get shifted forward a little bit last year by Bevo, and Bevo's just a weird unit, so maybe Daniel gets shifted forward again. But that's effectively why I'm not as big of a fan on him over Stewart and Ridley. Stewart's done it before, ultra consistent, pretty low floor. It doesn't look like Harry Taylor leaving is going to cause him any harm. Blitz has gone across that role, but won't be taking any of the kicking from Stewart. I think the only interesting thing we saw in the preseason was Jordan Clark took a lot more of the kick out. So Stewart still took a lot, but maybe not as much as last year. So I'm kind of curious, if Clark does get a best 22 spot, does he take more of the kick outs, which then might hurt Stewart a little bit throughout the season. Only other thing worth noting on Stewart is he had an injury-affected score, so once you take that out, his actual true average was even higher this 100. So a little bit of value with him there. And then finally, the one that's kind of really shot up in ownership is Jaden Short. So I'll shout out Eno again for this one, because He's been on his bandwagon for a while, and a lot of seasoned super coaches have kept one eye on Jaden Short for a long time, purely because every time we see Hooley go out, we see Short kind of explode or really show the potential to be a top 6 defender. This looks like it's going to be the year. Hooley's done like a 5 or 6 month calf injury, and when you're in your 30s and you've got calf injuries that bad, you just don't really recover from them. So he may play a handful of games this year, but I think we've seen enough from Short to get there's real upside, and especially at the slightly cheaper price point, at the 520 mark rather than up at the 550s. He's a pretty exciting pick. Next up, I have the Geelong defender, midfielder that I just mentioned, Clark. So look, we saw a massive score from him in the preseason, really great role, and we saw the potential kind of play out that we saw in his rookie year. It's still confusing to me how he's been in the doghouse and how he hasn't been getting a game, and kind of is a little bit suspect that he's going to start getting games in a year where they've topped up, with all these other experienced players like Higgins and Smith. So if he's named round 1, I think he's someone that you just have to start based on what we saw with role and scoring potential. Like he could make more than any rookie this year. And given how thin we are down back, like he's someone I've got there. I'd say if you don't like Clark as an option, the other person I'm warming to is Hayden Young. One that's not as popular. 15%. That's actually a little bit surprising. So he's played 4 games last year and then got injured on 1. I think his first 2 were like low 40s, like 41, 41. Then he scored 100 and something, and then maybe a 60, and then injured. And what we saw in the preseason from Hayden Young was, kicking on display, but also pushing up into the midfield, which is a little bit interesting. His preseason articles had talked about him not being too eager to move into the midfield, happy, to learn that halfback skill set, that craft. And he was really modelling his game off Luke Ryan, in the sense of like where he positions, how he protects space, how he uses good kicking to his advantage. And I thought that was really positive for a super coach, perspective, just given how well Ryan himself scores. So I really like that about Hayden Young. But yeah, we saw him with 23 touches in the preseason, pushing up to the midfield. I think he's someone that could go into the 80s this year, and given that he's priced at 52, he could well and truly, make over 150k and be a really good defender. So yeah, if you don't like Clark or he's not named, I'm really keen on Hayden Young, probably more so than a lot of the others in George's Discord. All right, and then the 2 rookies I've got, probably no surprises here. I still can't spell his name. So Kozzy and Highmore. I think Kajewski, if that's how you pronounce his surname, is more or less like already hinted at playing round 1. Highmore's a little bit more 50-50. I think like of the 2 of them, Highmore looks like he's probably got better scoring potential just given he's playing down back. But he's competing with people like Carlisle for that last spot. So there's a chance he doesn't get named round 1. Like we could just have one named rookie, which would be so scary. The other options people weighing up were Murray. Now from what I've heard, Murray's actually injured, so it seems unlikely that he's going to get a game. And then finally is Jordan Bartz. So once again, say you wanted to put Highmore on your field if he's named just because he seems like he's got good scoring, maybe put Butts on a bench. But anytime you putting a 180k player on the bench, it's a little bit sketchy. But look, he seems to have somewhat okay job security if he gets over the ankle injury and it's named round 1. But yeah, I don't know, 180k on the bench is just pretty sketchy. So that's the defense. I think obviously really heavily stacked here compared to prior years. Probably generally don't try and go over 2 or 3 premiums, and actually usually can find some good breakout contenders in the backs this year. But it's pretty much just guns, Clark because we don't have any better rookies, and then the 2 rookies we do have. All right, into the midfield. So controversial, but I don't have Neil at M1, and I think he's a great choice. I think he's going to be one of the top 8 midfielders this year, and he's probably going to play over 20 games. But at his price point, I just need the extra money, and that's where I've decided to sacrifice it over someone like Lloyd. And just given that he had, some calf complaints in the preseason, it's a reason not to start him, even though that clearly didn't really affect him in the preseason games. So Oliver, ever since his second year, he's like averaged over 110, doesn't miss games. He's just a little piggy for a reason. I think the only concern or question I have around Oliver is that there does seem to be less CBAs, probably less contested possessions, and he is a contested ball winner. So, his inside game's better than his outside game. That's the only, kind of question mark I have around Oliver, how that plays out. Whether or not he actually drops back a little bit, and instead of being at his like 120 average, he's close to a 110, in which case like maybe not starting him was probably a better decision. Next up is Jack Macrae. So he's actually someone I don't think I've ever started before because he's always been overpriced, and I've kind of like never bought into it. But I just think that out of the Dogs midfielders, between him, Bont, and Treloar, his only real roles are inside and outside. It seems like the outside role will score a little bit better. I just can't see them moving away from that. He's been ultra consistent both in terms of durability and also finishing top 8. So just another one of those like safe picks, but you are paying for it a little bit. The two that are kind of around this that I haven't picked, which are Jack Steele and Petrarca. So yeah, a little bit like Ridley, like second year players not second year players. I try not to pick players after their breakouts. They typically regress in points. There's very few, apart from like a handful of elite players, that actually like have a breakout year and then take another step the year after. They tend to actually like drop back a little bit. I'm really worried about Petrarca's ability to run out quarters. So like I definitely wouldn't pick him. The Steele pick I like a little bit more. I just worry that like we need to see him accumulate more ball if he's going to continue to be like a top 4 pick. And I'm not sure I'm just not sure it's in his DNA to do that. All right, so after Macrae, one that's kind of like come on real strong in terms of after the Amy series is Zach Merritt. So I think like the reasons why I picked Merritt are he's once again very durable, doesn't really miss games. He is probably priced a little bit under compared to how he came home. I think he averaged something crazy like in the high 120s or 130s on the run home, where he got shifted back to handle more of those CBAs. And from what we've seen in the preseason, he was leading the centre bouncers, even though Shield, McGrath, Caldwell, Parrish, Langford, all on the side. So it looks like Truck, in terms of how they want to run the midfield, has Merritt as like that lead, which is amazing. I think it's going to help his Supercoach. And once again, he's one of the midfielders that are a better kick, better user of the ball. So if that 45 kick they're talking about to enter the corridor and kind of create options and build this more attacking brand through these rule changes comes to fruition, he's going to be one of the midfielders that benefit from it more so than others. All right, and then up next I have Josh Kelly, who's a pick that I would not recommend to anyone else, but I love Josh Kelly, and I'm going to keep picking him until it pays off, even if it's to my detriment. So the reason why you pick Josh Kelly is like he could be the highest scoring Supercoach midfielder this year, like easily. He has it within him. He is very talented, both inside and outside. Once again, this seems to be a year where like the balanced inside-outside mids may do a little bit better than the pure inside mid. So that's where someone like Zach Merritt, Macrae, Kelly all gain value over people like Oliver, Cripps, for example. So why you don't pick Josh Kelly is like it's his injury history. He missed 3 games last year, 2 to concussion, 1 to calf, and then before that he's had a bunch of like very soft tissue injuries. I think the positive thing for me is like he only missed 1 game last year to a soft tissue. That was a minor calf. He's got through a full preseason, which I think is his first full preseason in a little while. He led GWS's time trial, and in the preseason game he like barely moved and made 100. So he's someone that like you could see just go 130 for the year, for sure. And I think there are much safer picks than Kelly. But if you look at my team overall in terms of like how I've selected, everyone else like is really safe in terms of no injury risk, really good scoring history. There's nothing speculative. So Kelly is my risky pick at the moment. But look, there's well, I guess we'll talk through like needing to adjust this team for round 1 if rookies don't fall, and like Kelly might be the one that I drop. We might show how that plays out. So quickly just through the rookie. So Campbell seems to be like a bit of a must-have, playing half back, elite kick. Looks like he'll play every game this year. Powell, best of the North mids, should be lots of opportunity for him. Did well in the preseason. James Jordan, like he might. This is not a good rookie. I'm really worried about him, even if named. Melbourne has like a fair few mids out that have got to come back, and he seems to be like someone that could be around for 2 or 3 rounds until people start coming back, and then he gets dropped, and like he's just in that done one price rise but doesn't come back for another 10 rounds type deal, which is like super scary. Goulden looks like he's going to get games early on as well and impress in the preseason. The 2 Hawks to follow Cos. So Brockman, I think, is one of the ones that when Clarko was talking, looks like he's definitely going to get a game as well. Downey's the one, they said like 2 or 3, and I think that all 3 is Downey. So he's not someone you want to start on the field anyway, but he may not even get a job round 1, which is a little bit scary. And then finally Scott, who looks like he's going to get a role for the Dogs, and at 102k, we'll take those. In the Rucks, we're not mucking around this year, and like I didn't even look at the mid-price options, if I'm being perfectly honest. I didn't think they were good this year. If you are doing that for whatever reason, I think Grundy's the one that you absolutely have to start. He's been the number 1 Ruck for overall points for like every year apart from 1. And he's priced at 100k less than Gawn. I think the thing that Gawn has going for him over Grundy is that like his first 4 or 5 games are against rookie Rucks. He should just crush. Like there's a world where he just averages 150 for the first 5 rounds, which is kind of nuts. And then finally Flynn, he is the rookie that has been named for GWS. So yep, get around him. They haven't gone with Briggs, which is why he kind of doesn't feature in my team, which you'll see. He looks like he's got decent job security. I think Bruce isn't meant to be back until round 10 to 12 with the shoulder injury, which is more than enough time to make some cash. The other 2 options there are like Hunter for St Kilda, who is 102k, which is like obviously really nice. But Marshall, even though have they updated this? So this was meant to be like round 2 or 3. It sounds like it could be more like 3 to 6. But the other Ruck option, which is Ryder, who's on like personal leave at the moment, sounds like he'll be back probably round 2 or 3. So Hunter's one of those options where he might get 1 price rise and then be in no man's land. I'd rather have someone like Flynn that may not be the best Ruck in the world, but if you get 10 games, you'll get really good cash generation out of him. Oh, the other option there is Meek, and I think Meek suffers the same problem, which is like he's probably the best of the Rucks, but like Darcy could be playing round 1. I mean, if Darcy and Meek are both named round 1, maybe you take him, but I think Flynn's still the better option, and if Meek's there, round 3 and is scoring much better, you maybe just bite the bullet and do a sideways trade. Alright, forward line, I only have room for 1 more premium, which is Josh Dunkley. Someone I'm a really big fan of, have been for a while. Who knows what's going to happen with Bevo, but he's priced good compared to someone like Danger, who I actually like this year. I still don't think you should start Danger. I mean, effectively, it sounds like he's actually going to play more midfield, which means that 114 average could go up, which is kind of crazy given his age and the fact he's been declining. But yeah, Danger's been super durable over his career. The only problem is that he's been battling a groin injury over the preseason, and he reckons he's still like a couple of weeks away from proper match fitness. So that scares me off, a top price forward over someone like Dunkley, who's young, and hopefully he's still going to get lots of midfield time, based on what we saw in the preseason, because he's an absolute gun there, and it just makes sense. Like, Bevo, please. Alright, so if I've only got 1 premium, it means I need to fill up with some mid prices. So the 2 I'm going to put in are Zeeble and Impey. The other options here are obviously Danaher and Dow. So Danaher I haven't picked just because it looks like key forward scoring is like a little bit suspect. You saw, I think, like Tanner Bruin, for example, the GWS rookie, who probably should have talked about in the mids. He kicked 4 goals for like 60 Supercoach. I think Danaher kicked, is it on his play notes, was it 3 goals or 4 goals for 60 as well? Like, yeah, 63 from 3 goals. That's quite scary. Like, maybe it's just because they had all the extra players on the field and that type of thing, but 3 or 4 goals, you should like guarantee you probably at least 80. So if Danaher has to kick like 4 or 5 goals, basically a bag to average 80 a game, that's like really scary. When you comparing to someone like Zeeble, who's going to be taking kickouts, which is free points, playing down back, free points, and Impey, who's meant to be doing the same. These 2 seem like much safer options than someone like Danaher. But look, if the rookies don't come through, I'm not opposed to picking him. Oh, and the other one's Dow. Like, The cheapest, the DPP is kind of nice. Did pretty well in the preseason in terms of CBAs, and he had a couple of moments, but is he that good of a footballer that you're confident that he's going to play 200k? You kind of have to hope that he's playing every game, and I'm not sure that he is. And by the way, that's the same problem with Clark. 240k and he isn't guaranteed a spot in the team is super scary. So let's fill out the team with some rookies. So we've got Warner, Fullerton, Bergman, and then Jones and Rowe. So I think Harrison Jones is super safe for a role. It just looks like he's going to be one of Essendon's 2 key forwards alongside Peter Wright, and should get a good run on it this year. So not someone you want as an on-field option being a key forward, but yeah, seems like he's going to be a good starting choice. Rowe is a small forward. What's this little note here? Yeah, small forward for the Crows. So once again, he's going to have moments. He should be able to make his money throughout the year. His job security looks okay as long as he performs. Mature age as well, I believe. But yeah, not an on-field option. Of the rest of them, there's 2 here that are really suspect. So Fullerton, whose position in the team is based on McStay being out, I think it's 3 to 6 weeks. Do I have player notes for McStay? Yep, 3 to 6 with a knee. And so look, if McStay's back round 3 and Fullerton's had 1 price rise and he's been bumped out by McStay, that's a disaster. Even if McStay comes back the back end of that and it's round 6, it's still not that many price rises. So I'm not super thrilled about that as an option. Bergman might get a spot. Yeah, power team, settled, hard to break into, yada yada. I think the person that he's kind of competing with, or his spot that he was holding, was Hartlett, but he's probably in defence, which is where he was playing. So yeah, hamstring soreness subject to fitness. So if Hartlett's in the team and Bergman's in the team round 1, great. If Bergman's in the team round 1 but Hartlett isn't, that's super scary, because Bergman's probably just not holding that spot come week 2. And then finally Warner, he seems to be pretty safe. He was really good in the preseason. Sydney do have other young mids and stuff that could challenge for a spot as well, but yeah, liked what I saw out of Warner. So this is the team. I think we've talked about the nervousness of rookies, and I guess one thing that I just wanted to talk about or show is something I've been preaching a lot in the preseason, which is, as the rookies start to land, if all of a sudden they're not there, what do you do, right? And I think you need to have some type of backup plan. And for me, my backup plan is getting rid of Josh Kelly. So effectively what you're trying to do here is free up some cash to kind of spread it and find some of these mid prices of rookies. So I'll show one way you could do it just quickly. So let's say Fullerton, Bergman, you're not happy with. Who else? Jordan. All right, so I need to kind of fill 4 spots. I think the rest of the rookies we're kind of pretty confident with. So getting rid of Neil, I think you can do something pick your favourite mid-price forward. So for me, that'd be Phillips or Caldwell. Let's say, which one's more owned? Let's go the popular route. All right, Phillips. Or alternatively, if you didn't want to pick one of the forwards, you could actually look at one of the midfielders that you like more. So maybe it's Taranto or Rao or Cripps. Maybe let's do a Cripps team. So I've freed up some cash 100k by dropping Kelly down to Cripps. I think what we probably need to do is move Clark into the midfield. And then you're looking at doing something like getting Hayden Young or Butts. So one of these, once again, more expensive, but maybe less potential for price in the back. Let's start with Butts just to make sure I've got enough money. And the forward line, you're probably going to pick someone like Danaher who's scoring. Oh, maybe Cripps doesn't work for this. Maybe let's go Toronto. So yeah, you're going someone like Danaher whose scoring potential maybe wasn't as good as what I thought it might have been. It doesn't look like an 80 average. Well, 80 average is still possible. It's going to be harder than what we kind of thought. Yeah, and then you're looking for another strong forward option. So it might be someone like Ned Cahill from Essendon, who's now playing down back. Maybe he gets named round 1, and you want someone like that. So, that's one way you could do it. I think there's one other option here as well. So with Treacy, not sure of the pronunciation, but so he was someone I guess people were quite excited about as maybe like a 102k playing rookie. On the weekend, he got suspended in the VFL for I think 3 rounds. So you could put someone like Treacy in, and effectively he's your loophole for the first 2 or 3 rounds if you really want a loophole. I don't believe they're necessary. I think with rolling lockouts you're going to get enough loopholes free of charge. So I'm trying to avoid starting with one. But you could do something like starting Treacy in your forward line. Now the downside is you're going to have to play one of Jones or Rao for the first few rounds, which is a pretty weak on-field rookie, but this is a decent way to get a loophole and then free up some cash. And then with that cash, you could once again splash it around. So maybe instead of Taranto, I want someone like Phillips, and then instead of Butts, I can get someone like Young. That's another way of doing it. There's one other option as well. Why isn't it coming to me? Oh, well, it is what it is. So yeah, so I think that's just a little thought exercise, but you should have your team pretty settled by now. Mine is. I've got most of my picks. I know my first 4 picked are Lloyd, Laird, Ridley, and Short in the back line. If I want to drop someone, it's Stewart. I know Oliver, McRae, and Merritt are my kind of first 3 picked mids. And if I want to drop someone, it's Josh Kelly. And then Dunkley's my only forward. I'm probably not going to drop him just because of structure. But yeah, knowing who's locked and who are the 1 or 2 that you could play with, and then all right, well, if I need to spread their cash to upgrade rookies, how would I do it? I think that's really important. You need to have those, that backup plan, 1 or 2 of those kind of done, and then you need to be looking at, all right, with the rolling lockout, as each night's released, what are the moves that I'd have to make, which are the players I'd lock in, what are the decisions I need to make, and just make sure you're really ready and deliberate for those, because I think what's going to happen, or what I've seen with some of these teams that are running maybe 4 defenders with Clark and 3 rookies, and one of the rookies is Murray, who's probably not playing, is you're going to get to a point where, if you haven't started Short, he's been locked out night 1, and all of a sudden you can't get Short or Doherty, if you like Doherty. And then you're going to run into these situations where your structure is just completely stuffed from round 1. So I guess last tips is make sure you have a contingency plan with whatever your locked in or starting team is. Know who you're willing to trade off for more expensive rookies if you have to. Second is have a look at that against the fixture for round 1. Understand how the rolling lockouts and when teams are getting named is going to affect your team and what decisions you need to make and whether or not you have the right flexibility. So if you need to pivot on a Saturday night, you can. And then lastly is I would try and aim for a little bit more remaining salary on this. 9k is not a lot. So just given the uncertainty, I'd say 30 or 40k is really nice, because if you get into this situation where this is your type of team and then all of a sudden something happens with, I don't know, Scott is not named, and now I actually can't trade him to anyone with 9k. So yeah, I'd be trying to have 30, 40k in the bank and just, being able to have a little bit of flexibility. So maybe you don't have Young and Clark, but Clark's not named, and all of a sudden you need to go to Young. You need to have 40k ready to go. So yeah, those would be my final tips. Please let me know what you think of the team. I'm pretty happy with it this year. It feels quite safe, with the exception of some of the rookie picks, but I'm hoping that we kind of get some names round 1 that'll help play out with me, without me having to sacrifice Josh Kelly. But I know that if it doesn't go that way, I've got some really good options and some really good contingency planning. So yeah, let me know what you think, and good luck for the season ahead. Thanks.